This is Ken Long from Tortoise Capital with part 2 of 3 of the zero state visualization. I want you to consider the diagram for a moment, and I want you to recognize two axes. The x-axis is a time axis going from past to present to future, with three gradations on either side of the present, so 3 layers. And then an emotional axis on the y-axis that ranges from despair to neutral to joy. And when I'm in the perfect zero state, I'm right at the origin at point number 5. Perfectly present and neither overly joyful nor in despair. I'm emotionally calm, detached. That would be the perfect zero state. I'm ready for mindful reflection and action and awareness. Unhurried. Watchful, relaxed waiting. Now there's an ideal state in there somewhere, but I don't have to be perfectly mindful to be an effective trader. And so I've marked off some arbitrary boundaries and decided that as long as I'm within the shaded blue area, marked off by 10, 11, 12, and 13 on each of those axes, that as long as I'm not exceeding one of those dimensions, then I am centered enough. I'm in enough of a zero state that I can be effective for trading. And so you've got to find out what that limit is for you and know what your markers are. And know what the indicators are that tell you if you're inside or outside of that shaded area. And so for me, my actual preferred state is not perfectly centered at 5, but really at this yellow dot, where I'm leaning forward, looking for the next piece of data. Leaning forward in a short period of time, with eager anticipation, slightly towards joy. This is the slightly heightened state of awareness of the hunter stalking the prey, or walking point in front of my ranger platoon at night, trying to detect ambushes so that we can conduct our raid, knowing that I've got the full power of that platoon behind me, and heightened senses, almost primordial. So that for me is the ideal state for trading. I'm still within the region bounded by 10, 11, 12, and 13, but I'm not exactly in a calm and detached state. I'm actually leaning forward just enough and alert and up on my toes and ready for action. Battle stations. The further out I go, past 12 towards 6, if I'm looking too far into the future, I miss the tracks in front of me. I miss the change in state because I'm elsewhere. If I'm dwelling in the past, I'm also missing those next states, and I'm elsewhere, and I'm not mindful. If I'm overly joyful, maybe I had a string of good trades in the past, abnormally good trades, and now I'm elated, I'm feeling good, and I've gone off the deep end, and I'm allowing that emotional state of endorphins to flood my brain and alter my perceptions and maybe my risk management parameters. If I'm too far into despair, I've gone beyond the limits of 11, and now maybe I've had a string of poor trades or just negative results, or some combination that has generated an emotional response in me that I have not been able to process. I'm not ready to trade until I've got my time sense properly calibrated, looking at the next cycle of information in order to lead to action, and got my emotions stabilized to the point where I have impulse control. And so I've marked off some other regions in here 7, I'm too far in the past. 8, I'm too far into joy. I think in region 1, I'm in the pleasure zone. My most favorite memories, which I've constructed and reconstructed to make it even better than the event, perhaps, as is the human way. We're primates. That's what we do. It's the way our brain works. Maybe I'm too busy living in the glories of the past, and now I'm making mistakes, remembering what it used to be like, and I'm not attending to my business. If I'm in 2, I'm near the greed zone. I'm thinking overly joyful about some distant moment in the future, and that greed is blinding me to the mindful needs of the moment. And so maybe region 4, I'm worried about where the future might go, and I'm only seeing troubles ahead. And that's frightening me and maybe causing me to act impulsively or not act, because I'm worried about where it might end up, the uncertain future. It's not even here yet. Many miles to go before we sleep. Region 3, out here in the land of painful memories, where I'm in despair about things that have gone in the past. How is it that I can move from those into those regions around 5? Moving from 1, 2, 3, and 4, those combination memories, not just time but also emotion. How can I move from 1, 2, 3, and 4 until I'm back within my sweet spot of mindful, detached, anticipatory awareness? I've been in all those states. Continue to go to all those states. I have to be mindful enough to recognize where I am emotionally and mentally. And then, so what? I have to be intentional about my actions. Until I've determined that I'm into this area, I will not trade. So spend as much time as I need to in those areas and feel those feelings. Learn how to process them, and don't fear them, don't regret them, can't control them, but you can choose to act or not act on them. That's up to you. That's entirely up to you. You can't control your emotions, and you probably can't control your thoughts very much. I mean, they occur when they will, and they go where they will go, but it's your choice on whether or not to act on the emotions or the thoughts. That's the intentional component of being. That is your will expressing your best self to act in the moment that is proper. Will you? So what I'd like you to do is digest this diagram, spend some time with it, spend some time in each one of these numbered areas. Remember a moment when you were there, and journal it. What was it like? Spend some time thinking about how you might measure those hash marks. What's that I'm marking it? Maybe it's plus or minus standard deviations or some unit of measurement. What might that be? How might that help you calibrate where you think you are rapidly, to do a rapid self-assessment, diagnose it, and then have a strategy for moving from 1, 2, 3, and 4 towards 5 until you're in the right region. Figure out where you belong when you're trading at your best. Where do you need to be and how do you get there? I want you to recognize that it's easy to let nature put you into the zero state. It's not an achievement that requires great effort. It only requires you to stop fighting it and let it follow its natural course. Let the emotion be what it is. Let the thought go where it will. Time how long it takes you to return to that peaceful state. A little boy throws a stone in a quiet pond and the waves dissipate on their own. Throwing more stones won't make the waves disappear. The best thing is just let it be and wait. That's your intentional action. Can you sit on your hands? How long does it take? Journal it. What are the triggers that tell you when you're in region 5 and you're approaching 10 or 11 or 12 or 13? What are those signals that allow you to know you're coming to a boundary that must not be crossed when you're trading? What can you set for detectors to help you make that call? When I get to 12 and start to go beyond, I have to stop. I have to get reset. What's my reset button look like? What is the physical, mental, emotional, feeling, sound, and smell and sight of that signal? What is my ritual to rapidly get it done? Is it a clap my hands, say, all right, let's go? Is it a visual cue, like looking at a statue or an icon or an image? Is it ringing a bell or a prayer bowl, a clapping of your hands? Is it snapping a rubber band on your wrist so that kinesthetically you get centered? Figure out what works for you so that you can hit that reset button and get back to your optimum mental state rapidly. That's a muscle just like anything else that can be exercised. It's a behavior that can be learned and triggered. Not a big deal, but you got to get it done. What I want you to do now is figure out where you want to be in the during portion of the trade, from the time that you enter to manage the trade until exit. While you're in the execution portion of that trade, where in the region 5 do you want to be? How do you move? How will you move from the green dot to region 5, or from orange, red, and purple? How do you get from these outlying regions back to the zone of effective action? How long does it take you to get there? Just observe, record it like a scientist. The more you observe it, the more quickly you'll do it, and then it becomes routine, no big deal. Normalize it. And how can we make this a routine process that requires no cognitive effort? Like a high five, or rally around the flag, clap your hands, snap the rubber band. What's the trigger that you can embed? That's a rehearsed behavior. So that's your task for part 2 on the zero state.